Hello and welcome to It's Your Health. My name is Kimberley Haas. We are with Joe Raulinaitis of the Food and Drug Administration. We've been hosting this informative series about different topics that the Food and Drug Administration has a vested interest in for about a year. We are going with our green screen set right now. So if you have any comments or suggestions for us as we transition to this new technology, please feel free to reach out to us. You can find us on the Town of Derry, New Hampshire's website. Welcome, Joe, to the program.
Kim, it is great to be here as always. Derry, New Hampshire is one of my favorite stopping off places.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. We're always happy to have you in town and to have you share some of the information that is relevant and pertinent to our society. Today we're going to talk about obesity. Maybe you could start by introducing us to the topic of obesity in general from the perspective of the Food and Drug Administration.
Sure, great intro here. Big concern, no pun intended. It's a serious issue. And I think to understand obesity and where the FDA fits in, you have to take a bit of a historical perspective. You've got to look back about 40 or so years and realize that Americans are getting larger. We are eating a lot more and exercising a lot less, and as a result, we're putting on the pounds. In fact, the average American male has gone from 169 pounds back around 1960 to 202 pounds today. It's an indicator. And the entire population at large in this country has definitely increased waistlines in the past 50 or so years. So with that concern comes a sense of health awareness on the part of the FDA. Of course, we're a consumer health-based organization, and the well-being of your viewers, who are our consumers, we have the same audience really, has always been paramount and really important to us. So we're looking at that, and we have been about 10 or 12 years ago. We created the Obesity Working Group, called the OWG, Obesity Working Group. And we took a long, hard look at the health trends in the country. The fact that we were not an undernourished country, we're not. We have a lot of food out there, and we tend to be eating it a lot more. And also, we are in the information age. And with the information age comes a real dramatic change in how we work, where we work, and better still, how much energy we expend when we're at work. We look at the fact that in the past 30 or so years, 30 years ago, takes us back to 1980 or so, we worked off about 55% of our energy in the work we did. It was physical, it required energy usage and so forth. Nowadays, we only expend about 20% of our energy at work. And when the energy is not expanded, it tends to build up in body fat on your system. So we needed to look really close at what was happening out there with the Americans. I mean, there are many factors in the obesity epidemic, as we call it. And we're really concerned not only about how we look, I mean, we're definitely heavier, a lot of us are, but also the health ramifications. There are a lot of negative ramifications when you put on extra weight. Type 2 diabetes is becoming rampant. Coronary problems, certain types of cancer, even certain bone density issues are impacted by the amount of body weight we're carrying around, both male and female. And you can measure obesity and being overweight relatively easily. It's what we call body mass index. You take the height of a person, you take their weight, you combine those two, and there's a chart to the right of that which tells you where you fit into a body mass index. If you were somewhere around 25 to 29.9, you're considered overweight. Anything over 29.9, 30 and above, is considered obese. Now in this country, about 65% of the American adults age 18 and above are either obese or overweight. It's a lot of people. It's a lot of adults who are just too heavy for their own well-being. So that's in a real synopsis, that's where we came in and got involved, and a few of the ramifications involved in it.
Let's break down a couple of those different things. You mentioned quite a bit, including the fact that, the typical male was about 170 pounds. Now, of course, at the end of that, you mentioned the body mass index, the height and weight. Do you think there's some other contributing factors to our height and our weight? I mean, are we getting stronger? Are there any benefit to it, or is it really just a major health concern because people are, quite frankly, fat?
Well, yeah, and we're fat and we're not very mobile. So we're fat, we're not very mobile, and that will have a big impact on the way we lead our lives, the quality of our lives. And you know what's really scary about this is we're seeing children, younger people, the very young people, tending to also experience situations of being obese or overweight, and that's a huge concern. But back to your original question, are we getting stronger, bigger, and faster with that size? Not a lot. We look at the exercise activity index for the average American, and we have it somewhere around 25%, which means that 25% of the population gets out, walks, runs, exercises, works out, golfs, does the sport thing that they should do to keep their body mass down. But if you look at that even closer and more accurately, we think that's somewhat exaggerated. We think that only about 5% of the American adult population really gets out there and exercises. So it's much less than we thought. So what's basically happening is the average American adult is spending about 55% of their waking hours sitting down. And when you sit down, you're in front of a computer screen at work, or you're sitting at home in front of the wide screen at your house. And what do you do when you're at home and you sit down in front of the wide screen? You snack. So TV viewing is not really conducive to being in shape and exercising. So to sort of respond to your question, we're eating more. We're eating more rich foods. We're working out far less, and as a result, I don't think we're benefiting a lot by the free time we have, and we are just definitely getting heavier. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard so many different debates with the BMI and the body mass index. I mean, from pro football players who would be considered obese but are at the height and spectacle of their careers, to criticism from, presidents like George W. Bush that he would be considered,
Right.
obese or overweight on
Exactly.
the body mass index. So you really don't know where to go. It seems like a lot of this stuff you really just have to kind of take into consideration for yourself. We don't want to be insensitive to any of our audience members who are out there today watching. By any stretch of the imagination, and not everything can be captured by a simple chart, but
No.
we have to look at quality of life, and I think that's the perspective I'd like to approach this show with, that obesity is a problem because it's a quality of life issue, especially for those little kids that are out there, and I mean they're looking at 60 to 70 years of struggling with these things, because we all know that once you develop a fat cell, it doesn't go away, it just shrinks.
Yeah, that's a major concern. Let me clarify the BMI for you and for your viewers. You're right. Athletes don't quite fit comfortably into the body mass index because they have a lot of muscle. So they're sort of away from the curve. The body mass index seems to be quite applicable to the average non-athletic American or the average American out there. But you have people who are exceptions to the rules, the soldiers, the firemen, the public service, the athletes, professional athletes who keep themselves in trim all the time, and their body mass index doesn't indicate fat, but lean muscle, which is a great thing to have a lot of, and not enough of us have that. You brought up the kids, real major concern. We've had some interesting initiative out there, and some was fostered by the First Lady Michelle Obama called Let's Move, which addresses the children and our awareness about their concerns. I gave you a few copies of our Spot the Block literature. What we want to do at an early age is we want young people to read labels. We want them to understand that caloric intake, if it's excessive, leads to body fat. So the Spot the Block program is really stressing that very young people, it's like the tweens, like 8 to 13 or so, or 9 to 13, go into stores, look at their favorite foods, and learn to read the labels. Two things they're looking for. They're looking for the calories. They're looking for the calories. They want less calories. We gave them 3 categories. We gave them low calorie of about 40 calories, medium somewhere around 100, and high, which is 400 calories per serving. serving. So we want them to look at the caloric intake that they're going to experience. You know, granted, you like chocolate chip cookies and full of calories and sugar and good stuff like that, but you need to be aware that when you eat it, it shows up somewhere else, you know, in your stomach or wherever else. So that's an awareness factor for very young people. The other thing we want children to understand, and this is good for everybody, we want them to understand that they have to read the ingredients in the product. You know, if you're looking at something with a real healthy level of ingredients, you're fine. But if you're looking at a lot of sugars, a lot of fructose, stuff like that, you're not so fine. So educating young people away from bad consumer habits is really important because, you know, they are the future generation. And what we're seeing here is a very real possibility, Kim, of a younger generation coming up, and you mentioned it earlier, not having the quality of life that the adults have now. And why is that? Because they lead a lot of their life in an obese or overweight state. And it's a lot of stress on their internal organs, you know, high blood pressure, hypertension, you know, the cancer situations. There are things that they'll have to confront as they grow up that will impact on the quality of their life and the longevity of their life. It really will.
Yeah, it's really sad and disturbing to think about the generation that's growing up, or even my generation, and we're not expected to outlive our parents, partially because of the obesity, partially because of drug and alcohol use, and in other environmental factors as well. For everybody at home, this is the Spot the Block campaign, and like Joe said, you know, you want your kids to be reading the labels and making sure that they're getting quality calories as well. A lot of these things are for like low salt pretzels or microwave popcorn, popular snacks. I would really emphasize though for the kids and the parents at home that you're not going to just want to count the calories. You're going to want to count the quality of those calories, and also too, especially if you have a preteena who maybe has a little extra weight on them, that might just be part of the growing process. It doesn't mean that we need to be alarmed and start getting our kids to eat just salads with lettuce for dinner every night. We want to pay attention to the quality of the calories and make sure that they understand that they also need a certain amount of calories every day in order to perform well in school and sports.
That's well said. Well said. Yeah, that's a message that we need to you know, send home to these young people. They need to get out and play and be active young people, because that's just so important to both physical and mental health and socialization as well. There's a study that I looked at before I came up here a couple days ago that projected the way things are now in this country, our eating habits, our lack of exercise, and what we can expect, say, 12 or 15 years down the line, like in the year 2030. If things keep going the way they are, if we don't keep getting the message out like we do here at Derry Television, we're going to have a lot of people in all 50 states. I think 55% of the population will be overweight or obese. So that's like, you know, half of the population. So out of every 2 people that sit down, 1 of them will be obese or overweight.
And that includes children and adults?
It does.
Not just the 65% of adults who currently are. So that's really bringing it down for the children.
Yeah, that's a concern. That's a concern. If you have half a population that is suffering from obesity or the overweight syndrome, it's a huge drain on medical costs. It costs, right now, I think we're spending and you know, I'm from the government. I like to crunch numbers. I love those numbers. I think
love those numbers.
Yeah, about $125 billion on medical care right now. But you can double that. You can double that in 2030 if things keep going the way they are. We're all going to have to pay the health costs for these people. I mean, we've seen cases of type 2 diabetes become somewhat rampant. We've seen, you know, obesity-related cancers really come into the forefront. You know, coronary, pulmonary diseases are increasing. You know, it's time to do something about it. I mean, awareness is just a huge step. You know, getting the message out, you giving us time to come here and discuss this so your viewers can look at it and listen to it and process. It's really important for us. Really, it's just a major concern. It really is.
And I know there's so much emphasis about this on the news. I certainly don't want to alarm or scare people. I just really want them to think about what they're consuming at this time of year where we have all those fresh fruits and vegetables available to us and farmers markets. I mean, and then fishing, it's fishing season, and pretty soon it'll be hunting season. You know, we have so many options available to us. We're not forced to go through the drive-through at McDonald's like so many people will try to claim, whether they feel that way because they have so many other pressures in their life, or they're actually just adjusted to eating those types of foods on a regular basis.
We get into an interesting habit as far as what we eat, and we're not all educated or as dedicated as you are. I wish we were to eating the right things. But you're right. This is a wonderful time of the year, and it's going to get better as we get near the harvest season. A lot of good fruits, a lot of good vegetables. For parents and caregivers, people in responsible positions, you need to bring that message home to younger people. You need to have them go on our website and visit Spot the Block, learn how to read a label accurately, and adhere to good dietary practices. That survey that I looked at that projects us out, I went to the New Hampshire data.
Okay.
I thought this would bring it a little closer,
Absolutely.
a little closer home to the folks here. Currently, in the year 2013, the state of New Hampshire is number 35 as far as obesity goes, and that's really pretty good. In other words, there are 34 states ahead of New Hampshire as far as being more obese goes. On the average, the state has about obesity rate of 26.2. It's pretty good. That's pretty good. But if things are going right now, the way they tend to trend, by 2030, you will have fallen to about number 20. You'll be in the upper half as far as obesity goes, and we projected about 57.7% of the New Hampshire population may be obese or overweight. And the reason for that is because New Hampshire children in the 10 to 17 year age group, about 29% of them are overweight now. And they will become the overweight adults in 2013, not to alarm viewers, but it's just an awareness thing to be, just to be in somebody in your forefront and realize we have a responsibility that, carrying those extra pounds is not good for anybody, and that we've got to be aware of it.
Let's talk a little bit about the myths versus the facts.
Okay.
When it comes to obesity and what happens. I've heard the theory that part of the reason for us becoming more obese, it's not just the trans fats, which we know our body cannot process
Correct.
whatsoever, but it's the hormones in our chicken and our beef products. Has there been any correlation or link to the different ways we grow our foods now, the different products we use?
That's a great question. And there's a lot happening in the development of a healthy food market or an interesting food market. The FDA has bridged those topics to industry, as far as labeling properly. As you know, there's a bigger trend towards organic foods. And foods, with no pesticide input or no chemical enhancements in them. I think we're sort of going in that direction. Does that relate to, more fat in our midsections? I'm not really sure of that, Kim. I'm not really sure of it. But we have a more diverse amount of foods out there. The farmers markets that you mentioned are just growing leaps and bounds. I come from the Worcester area, and that's a pretty big city, and we have a farmers market there every summer and fall, and it's very, very busy. So I think we're getting more aware, and we have a lot of good things to eat. I think the jury's still out on the long-range effects of different food grade enhancements for our meats and our poultries and the whatnot. I think we have to watch that very closely and see what happens. That's about it there, yeah.
Let's talk about the myth versus the fact that more information is better. I am hoping that this will be a very effective program for youth, and they will get used to reading those charts, and it'll just become a natural part of life. But one of the biggest problems that, say, enterprises like we like to blame all the time for obesity, like McDonald's, is that they will have lower calorie options, they will have more salads, and for some reason the Americans just want more hamburgers, and they even now I notice when I'm traveling and I do stop, they will have, this salad is 350 calories. With the fried chicken, it's 480 calories. It still doesn't stop people from ordering the fried chicken.
You've done your homework. It's true. And we've seen that people have a propensity or a tendency to enjoy our fast food mentality. And you break that down in several levels. It's very seductive how these companies advertise their products. They appeal to everybody, and they've got it down pat. It's a youthful food, it's a fast food, it's a tasty food. It's the American food, and it's become that way. So we are prone to think that this is the way to go, and we like it, and
it tastes good.
Kim, it tastes very good. It does, and in moderate amounts, it's okay. It really is. I would, not a daily or hourly thing. And more people, as we spend more screen time in front of those wonderful widescreen TVs, we are snacking more. And once again, the producers of the Snacks of America, and you can find aisles and aisles of snacks in every retail grocery store you go, they have got us cornered there. So we're snacking a lot more than we did 20 years ago. These supersizing of portions have really gone away, and that's the industry responding to government, the media, the healthcare system, saying this is not a good way to approach eating. So supersizing has gone away, but people buy more of the average size burger. We just buy more of it. It doesn't have to be a big
Well, then
pile.
you just get 2 double cheeseburgers on the dollar value meal.
You can do it. You can do it. So it's the bottom line here is to listen to you and be a wise consumer. You just have to put 2 and 2 together and realize calories in have got to be burned off, or you're going to be wearing them. Really.
Yeah. The last myth versus fact I want to go over before we start thinking about some solutions, some creative solutions that private and public businesses, towns, entities can use to battle some of these epidemics, because it's all our responsibility in the long run, is the myth versus fact about, and I'm particularly curious about this. I'm doing some research on alcoholism for another show, and there's a theory that alcoholism is a genetic disease. It's inherited. It's passed down. If your father was an alcoholic, you're more likely to become an alcoholic yourself. Is that true about obesity? I personally tend to believe that just like you can inherit your mother's blue eyes, you're likely to inherit her blue eyes, maybe her frame, but do you inherit that extra weight?
That is a great question. Stump the bureaucrat. That's a tough one. I think somewhat your tendency to eat, your desire, how you metabolize food and burn it off, may be genetically inherited. Have a propensity for that. So I think we can, and the genetic question is brought up in all the literature that I've come up to. But basically, the people at the FDA and the healthcare folks, the dietitians and so forth and so on, believe that it's basically lifestyle. Our lifestyle has changed so dramatically. As I mentioned, we have a lot of face time with screens, and we're just not working out as much as we used to. I never miss a chance to take a punch at social media. Social media is changing our mindset too. As younger people get heavier, and they are, we saw it here on the stats for New Hampshire, Kim, it's becoming accepted. It's becoming more accepted, and you're starting to think of your peers as being obese or overweight. And when that starts happening, the concept of being lean and thin sort of fades out, and everybody's overweight or somewhat plump and fat, and it becomes socially accepted in the younger generation. So social media is having an interesting impact on how we perceive ourselves and how we accept obesity. It's an interesting phenomena. So once again, no panic intended. Awareness is what this program has always been about, and you have dedicated yourself to, objective journalism, and I certainly appreciate that, because it gives me time to get a message across. So yeah, social media has an impact. So genetically, probably not a lot. Lifestyle changes, philosophies on how we view ourselves, yes. Peer group pressure is what it is, and if more and more younger people are heavier, eventually you'll have a whole generation that is accepting of heavy people. Could be interesting.
Well, I mean, certainly we want everybody in our society to feel accepted. And the last thing I would want out of this show is for somebody to become, an over dieter, because that tends to lead to many other complications and problems like anorexia, bulimia, and those diseases are more deadly, in my opinion, immediately than having an extra 10 to 20 pounds. And
well put.
There are a lot of different theories about, having a little extra weight. My grandmother, who's 92, said she was glad she was plump in her 40s and 50s because she's used it in the last 50 years of her life. So I don't want anybody to feel like, we're judged, or if society gets bigger, they're going to be judged. We want people to be healthy. We want them to live productive lives, and we want every single member of our audience to reach their fullest potential. So let's talk about some things that the government and businesses can do to make it easier to be thinner. I know that everybody does this now, and I definitely do it myself. I eat in front of my computer. I do. I eat lunch in front of my computer. And I don't necessarily get up on my breaks and go walk the stairs or something like that. That would be a pretty quick or easy fix. And I've heard of companies putting like treadmills in place, so when people check their email, they have to be on the treadmill. What are some of the trends? What are some of the things we could easily implement into our own lives?
Well, there's the labeling initiative, which is out there and still pending decision, where we've talked to industry and we've asked that things like calories be in bigger, bolder print on a label so everybody can see it. And judging the amount of calories says a lot on how much extra weight you're going to be confronted with. So that would be an industry agreement, industry proactive move on their part. The school systems, the Spot the Block, the initiatives that the First Lady has put forth, those are wonderful things to change a generation's mindset. Really, really good things. The FDA has been perplexed, and we've looked at all our studies that I have in front of me here, and we understand that healthcare organizations, regulatory agencies like our own, have got to assure the quality of the food and the wisdom to use it wisely, which brings me right here to the TV show here in Derry. So that's an important thing. We are what we eat, and we have a responsibility to take care of ourselves. We're our best advocates, and I love it when you talk about fruits and vegetables and the produce of the land that's within very close to where we're sitting right now, really. So we should be our best advocates. We should look and project ourselves out to the fact that we should have long lives, and that if you're obese or if you're overweight, you're definitely going to jeopardize your health and well-being. You really are. And then again, there's the healthcare communities need to pay for all this. I mean, that's the real bottom line in a lot of these things is we're going to be spending billions of dollars in the future if things keep going the way they are. So education, awareness, personal pride, the willingness to sacrifice and push off a little bit and walk 30 minutes a day is never a bad thing. Be our own best advocates. We're smart people. This country was not developed from people that weren't aware of their current status and weren't projecting to a good future. So I think that's what we have to try to be optimistic here. And I am optimistic, Kim. I have great faith in the American people, and always coming across the border up into New Hampshire re-verifies that every time I drive up here. So yeah, we have to play our game real tight, be real smart, and be aware.
Absolutely. And before we wrap up today, are there any weight loss measures or diet pills that are approved by the FDA?
Oh, there are. There's Orlistat is out there. That's a lipase inhibitor. It prevents caloric breakdown of fats in your system, and it's for people with a body mass of like 30 and above, or the overweight folks, 29.9 and below to 25, and prescribed by a doctor. It's pretty effective. We know there are people that are troubled with being being overweight, and it could be genetic, it probably is, and it's just troublesome. So there's medicines, see your doctor, see your pharmacist. There's certain types of surgery that is proven to be very effective. But once again, before you embark on a clinical approach towards obesity, get some good guidance from your health caregiver and your pharmacist, major players in that routine.
Right, and make sure that none of these drugs are interacting with each other in a negative way, especially if you're on drugs for something else. And I certainly advise everybody at home, too, to try a multivitamin. I know that it sounds really simple, but I think for a lot of us, we're overfed and undernourished.
Correct.
Like we're not getting the proper B vitamins we need, which are so important for metabolism. We're not getting the chromium we need, which is so important for muscle mass, things of that nature.
Sure. Wise words. Wiser words were not spoken. Look at your supplements. There are some great supplements out there. And I don't know, we've done programs on health fraud. Don't fall for fraudulent products. I could have brought a few things up here to show you, but don't fall for fraudulent products. There are a lot of weight loss products out there that swear miracle cures. You can eat everything you want, 24/7. Take this pill or whatever, this powder, and you'll still lose weight. Please, dangerous. Don't fall for those. And we always try to drive, health fraud is real, it's alive. The old snake oil salespeople never go away, and they never will. And they're out there.
Darn it.
Yeah. And so don't go for the dependable supplement, the vitamin B, and so forth. Look at the clinical option if you need it. Use common sense and dedication, and enjoy your life.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Joe, for being with us today. As always, you're super informative. I love hearing the Food and Drug Administration's perspective on these issues, and I really appreciate everybody at home for watching today's show. Again, this isn't a show that's geared towards trying to make everybody in life look like a certain image. Certainly, we will never be photoshopped people. We will never be airbrushed people. Nobody needs to have plastic surgery to fit into a certain role or model. I would advise against that and living in that kind of realm of thought. However, it's really important, like I said, that we each reach our fullest potential and we live a healthy life and a happy life for as long as we can. And one of the ways that we can do that is by making sure that we're eating enough calories. We're eating enough calories that are nutrient rich. We're making sure we get that exercise and that we don't become overweight or obese if we can possibly help it. And if we do gain some extra weight, as we all do in life, myself included, that we work hard to take it off, especially these summer months. It's a great opportunity. The days are longer. Get outside, take a walk, visit the farmer's market, things of that nature. Once again, my name is Kimberley Haas. Have a great day.